One of the things I keep hearing is around the fact that we need to be more holistic. We need to be more integrated in the way in which we have a relationship with the moana. Our Indigenous people are the ones that have been trying to operate in this way for many, many years, decades. And that currently we have a system where it's all about the extraction of our resources to generate profit. And that fundamentally across the board isn't working for our taiao and for our people as well.
One of the things that defines how we as New Zealand interact with the ocean is it has become very human-centric. It has become a source to deliver utility to humans at the expense of the existing environment. What if in our wildest dreams we were able to reimagine Aotearoa's marine governance system and put Tangaroa at its heart, for it to be tiriti, grounded and tikanga-led, and how that dictates we should act when we move into these spaces.
In terms of Tangaroa Ararau, this project's very much around how do we create an oceans-centric governance regime that puts Tangaroa and Hine Moana at the heart of our decision-making, shifting the system to a place where the focus should be on the ocean itself. And from a policy and legislation perspective, it's looking at how do we do that. We look after the ocean so the ocean can look after us.
So we looked at the relationships that our tupuna had with the oceans, how it dictated they would live their everyday lives. And then when we stopped and thought about how could we distill the core essence of that relationship into some underlying design principles that could apply equally to today's context as it did previously in those ancestral times. And so we came up with 6 pae moana that we could use to carry this kaupapa forward. And one of the core principles we looked at was this idea of how do we envisage both the weight of the past, the push of the present, and the pull of the future. Now for us, while the weight of the past lies in a lot of the governance and legislative history that has led to the shaping of our existing system, we also have a deeper past, an ancestral legacy that we don't want to lose track of. So when we looked at the future's thinking, we wanted to make sure that our ancestral legacy really shone through in how we would do things.
Come down, just same thing, come down this way, keep that same width and distance from the bank.
So when in talking about moana, you obviously reflect on those journeys of our ancestors, hence where they came from, Hawaii, but they also signify the time when this place was populated by our tipuna. And so they left tohu, signs.
Their whole way of thinking and looking at the natural environment, how to look at tohu, when to fish, when not to fish, when migration patterns, looking at our manu, you know, our teaching birds that used to fly across the sea and everything else, looking at those tohus, telling that narrative of our whakapapa virtually. You know, and that's the connection of the moana is whakapapa.
It's a bit choppy and windy out there today, but if you look very carefully, there are yellow marker buoys just off here. Those marker buoys are set up on top of reefs, a reef system that runs through this part of the bay. And on those reefs live the kaitiaki for the people for this side of our moana, and particularly our taniwha. If you're in the surf, our taniwha there is te whanga, so if you get caught in a rip or having difficulty when you're out with your whānau swimming, te whanga is a taniwha that you can call out to for assistance. If you're further out from the surf, there's another taniwha called pipi taiari, a taniwha that can consume things. So if you're feeling a bit mawiri, you can tono to that taniwha to take your whatever ailment there, and that taniwha takes it on himself. That role is part of the hauora connection between our people and the moana. But these kaitiaki are there. They're there and they're present to look after us, to keep us safe, to ensure that our well-being, our hauora is what it should be, and to remind us about the connection we have, the present day, back to those tipuna.
Ia mai koe ia whakahua tiake, ko ai te whare nei, ko te kani, ko wai te teko teko kei runga, ko pai kea, ko pai kea. Whakakau. Hea tēne me te whakakau. It's to swim and traverse through the water, but more importantly, he kauhau. It's a form of connectedness that those tipuna had with the moana that allowed them to come ashore and carry the teachings of Tangaroa onto the shore, knowing very well that the interconnectedness between te moana nui akiwa and Aotearoa whenua, that there's a deepness that allows us to do that.
All the children of Rangi and Papa are environmental children. They represent or they are, I don't like the word personification because it's, they're not people, but they come as parts of the environment. So Hina Moana is the energy that brings about Ira Atua and resides and lives in the sea. And what's important about that is that her uri have the strong ability to breathe oxygen under the water. So that's one of the things that you have to look at when we think that mankind can't do that. And that really cements in my mind that that's an atua. There's so many other things that tell us that this is Ira Atua as opposed to Ira Tangata. And lots of Hina Moana's line are Ira Atua. And of course, Hina Moana had a brief, a relationship and a union with Tangaroa as well as with Kiwa. And so born out of these two unions comes the environmental line and then a human line. And so in this particular case, when you get all those particular different types of creatures that live in the sea, they are the production or the product of the union with Kiwa and Hina Moana.
A lot of our design comes from nature. Whakairo came from the depths of the ocean. Our tipuna kōrero for whakairo in particular goes back to Tangaroa. And the origin for so much of our mahi toi going back to him. And the first carvings, the first whare nui, the first experiences with carving were within the moana.
Many things that you see inside our carving, how carved houses come about. So a lot of our stories are stored within this house. And it's hard now because we have been, in our colonised state, so disconnected from Tangaroa that to even mention we need to have a relationship with Tangaroa, people think you're crazy, you know? Oh, it's just sea. But you have to be able to understand what it is that Tangaroa contributes to your life. Create based on that, this relationship. That is, give back. You know, I take, I give back. I take, I give back. That's the fundamentals of this tikanga called Tauutuutu.
Well, there's a relationship between atua. You know, you got the tuakana, which is Tangaroa, but he had a taina. And his name was Moko. How do they relate? Because they both have a certain type of water table. And as it begins to shake, the water begins to reverberate and move through the layers of papatuanuku, comes to the surface, and what's on the surface is a form of art called moko, scarified the earth. And so looking at that, you're going, oh yeah, the old people went, yep, so that scarified that bit of earth like that, that must mean I'm from over here. I'll take that moko mark and I'll put it on myself from that bit of land. So you're marking yourself, and you're connecting yourself using the water tables from that particular part of the land. And they're able to see one another for who they are and able to create a new platform that allows the next level to step onto it, and the scaffolding of who we are as Māori. They call it whakapapa.
There's different perspectives when you live in the moana, or when you're part of the moana, you're able to see things differently to just standing on the beach. Pick up what you can pick up out of those spaces and transfer them into what we do for you to be able to create whatever you want to create, especially pattern making, and then the connection that we're able to have also with our tangata o te moana nui a Kiwa. So all these, I suppose, they're life experiences that we are able to experience because we live here, we breathe here, and we live in the ocean. We're the powerful storytellers. We're powerful, our tauira here. They understand that. They are great storytellers, and they are the next, you know. Ngā mea kawe ana i o tātou kōrero, ngā kōrero a kui mā koroma. E ora ai tātou te hunga Māori.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of strands that we have to interweave really to create a whāriki, a takapau that's sustainable for the future. I think through arts, using metaphors, we can do that really well, but we need to work together to make sure it works.
In the current time, that there is a lot of development in terms of frameworks of working together between Māori and non-Māori. And I think the biggest impediment is probably the value set that one culture has compared to the other. It's a bit of an education to try and turn one's thinking around in order to accommodate, because I think when you look at the cultural values of water, I think you start to see the importance of how much you need to look after it.
Moreover, as iwi are becoming more mature in their business dealings, you know, Māori in general have actually got a massive opportunity to how we manage it. You know, it's actually good that they want to get more involved in this space as well. Because it has been, you know, you think about it in the timeline, we had the Sea Lord deal in '92, gravitating to the Māori Fisheries Act in 2003 is getting a review. We haven't actually had that much time to know how to be commercial fishermen. Now we're maturing, we're getting better, we're getting more sophisticated, and actually our long-term lens across the whole, you know, our whole-term spectrum and our long-term lens actually works in our favour, because we're here for forever, and just like every stakeholder, we want our resource to be here forever. And that's pretty exciting if you think about actually us, how we look at integrating a tikanga-based framework in terms of how we govern, how we manage, how we do all our stuff through commercial fishing. So actually it works in our benefit.
If we have a vision, or we have the goal and the purpose to see a future like that, you know, to be able to envision where you're going, to cement the knowledge of our atua Māori and our Tangaroa and all that family into our minds, you have to prepare now and use all the tools to be able to do that. And so that's all about being prepared.
Iwi mōrehu tata. We are survivors. No matter what happens, we will survive. We just have to believe in our old people and believe in our teachings, believe in our young people, and believe that the future looks good, that te ao mohopuna mo te apopo is good for us. No matter what happens, there's the future. We just have to have belief in ourselves.
We owe it to our ocean to ever be present with it, regardless of what we have to confront. Because of that, there is a duty, not only to self, but as kaitiaki to those that are yet to be born. Those carvers of the future, the artisans that will come and retell our stories again in their way. But the consistency is the acknowledgement of ātuatanga, the acknowledgement that moana is a part of us and ingrained in our being. And let them then find the creativity out of that.
Tangaroa te meha, tangaroa whakamautai. O au matakaka ki tu au Hawaii, ka te ato rawaka mai, ko tāne harururutu. Whāno haramai te tōki, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.